Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of the podcast Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. And I'm so happy to greet you, to talk to you about one of the most problem creating problems in how we can solve with the tools that we have. So I know that it's a tautology that I'm saying, but the topic that I want to talk to you about is sacrificing. And I want to present to you the tool that you already have within you, the no sacrificing tool that I'm calling it. So here in this podcast, I will be talking about the definition that I am proposing to you to consider, even though you can find so many others, or you can define your own way of how you might be doing that. And then I want to also present to you some of the ways how we're doing it, and then why we're doing it, and then, of course, what we can do to stop it. So, the definition that I'm proposing to you to consider is three definitions that I have thought about, especially based on the experiences of my clients, but also myself, because I am a recovering sacrificer. So that's why I'm still also working on this topic. So the first definition that I want you to consider about sacrificing is giving up what you want to what you don't want. I mean, how crazy is that, right? Think about it. How we are like wanting, for instance, to take time off and do all the things that we want to, but then let's say our boss called to do something over the weekend or after working hour, or even during our vacation, and then we just go and do that, sacrificing what we're actually wanting for what we don't want, right? So that's the first definition that I want you to think about. The second definition that I think also so helpful to think about is trading uncomfortable to the comfortable. And that I think is happening so often as well, is saying no to that boss in that scenario is so uncomfortable, and we feel like we are not really wanting to do that because of so many thoughts that we have. And then we just go for the comfortable one, we believe, which is that just saying yes and then everyone's happy kind of a feeling, even though we know that if we keep doing that, we will be feeling resentment and feeling not good about ourselves, but still in that moment, we just seek the comfortable over uncomfortable. Right? The third one is similar, but I still want you to think about this way is whenever you're sacrificing, you are avoiding feeling something. In other words, you're avoiding feeling fear, maybe, of offending the boss, right? That's why you just want to go and do the thing. Or you are fearing having a conflict with the boss, so that's why you're going to do the thing. Or maybe you are avoiding feeling any sort of discomfort. Like maybe you feel like if you say no, you will be feeling guilty, and therefore you may just go and do that, even though then you'll be feeling resentment. So do you see what I'm saying? So that's why I think that I want you to think about three different ways to the sacrificing, simply because I want you to think about what feelings you are giving up, right? In order to not feel discomfort. So maybe the feelings that you're giving up are wanting to be like free and doing all your things, and then you are giving that up in order to feel um, pressured or in order to feel resentment. Because if we are not really doing what we want to do in that moment and instead doing the thing that we don't want to be doing, then we'll be resenting. So you see that we're trading one feeling to the other one. An interesting thing is that we're trading the feeling that we want to the feeling that we don't want. I mean, if I think about it, that's crazy. So now let's also look at the Google definition that I also wanted to just present to you for fun. And one of the definition that it said is slaughtering of an animal or a person as an offering to a deity, right? And I know that that's like some of the definition that we still use, but I thought what was interesting is that how we might be actually slaughtering our personality or who we are for the sake of being nice, for the sake of being good, or for the sake of something that we are wanting to be, right? So in other words, how we might be slaughtering our soul, slaughtering of who we are for the sake of something else. And I know that this is a very exaggerated language that I'm presenting to you, but I just want you to think about what would you do if you thought that's the consequence of you sacrificing, right? The other one that the Google says is the giving up something valuable. And I think that's also a very valid definition, because we are often ready to give up something valuable like our time and more things. And I will be talking about that. And let's look at how are the ways that we're sacrificing, right? I think the biggest that I see, like, of course, there could be so many ways that we're sacrificing in our work life, personal life, and I'm not even touching the personal life because it's so interlinked. So I will be focusing on the work life, but of course, you can separately look at also, excuse me, how you are sacrificing at personal life, because if we're good at sacrificing at work, it's likely that we're also good at sacrificing personal life. So some of the main ways that I see people sacrificing at work, but this is not the whole list, obviously, but I just want you to think about some of the common ways that we're doing it, right? So one is time and energy, right? That's like the huge one that we are so good at sacrificing. Another is values and principles. Another one is the result or the impact that we're wanting to make. And another one is boundaries. So I'm presenting to you four of them, but I'm sure there might be others that you can dig up or that is very specific to your situation. So you can have a look at that, because I will be walking you through each of them individually and show you how we're doing it, and also show you or ask you some questions that for you to reflect and think about for yourself. And then you can do the same process with other areas that you see where you might be sacrificing, right? So one of them that I realized that as I was preparing for this podcast is that I was thinking that if we are ready to sacrifice our time and energy, our values and principles, the impact that we want to make, the boundaries, then all of them make us who we are, right? All of them. And of course, there are more, but they are some of the fundamentals of who we are, the values that represent who we are. And those, if we're ready to sacrifice them, if we're ready to give them up, then it means also we're ready to give ourselves up. And I know, again, I don't want to be sounding very like what is the like headliner type of person, but I'm just wanting to like shake you up a bit, maybe with my words, for you to think about. I mean, if we're willing to sacrifice all of these things, then what is left of us, right? So I feel like if we keep sacrificing so many different things, so many different areas in our lives, then we're really giving up of who we are. And therefore it becomes so like as if we lost ourselves, as if we are not really who we are anymore, because we got so into this organization or into this work that we just lost our identity of who we are. And that's where it comes from, right? So I want you to think about that as well. So now let's dive into some of these areas specifically. And I would love for you to consider some of the questions that I will ask and see for yourself what your answers are. And I will be looking at my notes because I have taken lots of notes as I got prepared for this podcast. So one of the things I said that time and energy, right? So time, of course, is like so a very common one that humanitarians tend to sacrifice a lot, their personal time or their time during vacation or their time on weekends, because even if they're not maybe working, they're always checking their phones and seeing like the notifications of, oh, this email came through and and then thinking about it all the time. So that's why I thought time and energy goes together, where we're not only spending time, but we're also thinking about it and then taking up our brain energy that is actually meant to be for other things, for resting, for being with our loved ones. But instead, we keep sacrificing to that work, right? So if we are doing that, then it must mean that we believe that we can't really do it otherwise, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing that. So there is the reason why we're doing it. I would love for you to be very curious about why do you do it? What do you think happens if you don't check those notifications? What do you think happens if you don't just constantly thinking about or having your phone around, or even when at a dinner table, your phone is on the table, and then if someone calls or some messages, you just pick up and then ignore your loved ones, right? Of course, I'm exaggerating, but this instances happen a lot. So what is it you think that will happen if you don't answer and if you don't check those things? And then think about also what is it that you're giving up in order to honor those things, right? Your time with your family, your time with yourself, you're honoring your time with your family, respecting their presence and interacting with them. Those are the things maybe you're giving up. Or your peace within, those are the things that you're giving, right? The values and principles. And this one is, I think, one of the big ones as well is, let's say that we have a value of freedom. We value freedom of standing for ourselves, standing for our rights, standing for what we believe in. And then if someone comes and asks us not to stand for it, and then we just give them up, right? So when, for instance, I was thinking that we are so into defending rights of other people, right? Defending their equality, defending their non-discrimination and all of these things. And then why we're not doing that to ourselves? Why are we not valuing our own principles? For instance, a lot of people tell me that their value is integrity, right? Being in integrity with themselves. That often means doing things that we said we would, or doing things out of belief that this is exactly what we want to be doing, and then doing it, right? That's integrity. And then we tend to sometimes forego that or give them up in the name of stability, in the name of not having problems with our boss, or in the name of not really pursuing it because maybe we believe that, oh, it's not possible anyway. And even if I keep pushing for that, then I will be seen as a troublemaker or as a rebellious, and I don't want that reputation. Or other people may not like me if I keep doing this, and therefore we will just give up what's important to us. And that's the same as when I was thinking about impact, right? So that we know always that we want to create certain type of impact within, of course, the framework of where we work, but we know that we can do it, we want to do that. And then when we see that we cannot achieve that for all the different constraints, then we get disappointed. And then as we get more and more disappointed, then we start protecting ourselves and then therefore not really pursuing those impacts. And that will feel like we're not really fulfilled, and therefore we are going down like the rabbit hole of, I don't really want this, I don't like this, and all of these things. And that all comes from that sacrifices, right? Sacrificing what the values we have, the principles that we have. And then the boundaries is, I think, the other one that we tend to sacrifice a lot is the boundaries of, let's say that I want to honor my time and I want to say no to my boss, when she or he wants me to do this work after a working hour, let's say, or even during working hour when you're working on something else. Now, let's say that you have decided to do that boundary, but then your boss said something and then you just gave up all of your agenda and then you went and did the boss's request, right? Now, in that moment, think about it. What if you said no? What would happen? What would you think your boss will think about you? And how will that make you feel? What will you be thinking about yourself if you say yes to the boss and sacrificing it? And what will you be thinking about yourself if you say no to the boss and not sacrificing it? Right? So these are the interesting things for you to explore to see what are your thoughts as to why are you doing this. And that brings me to the next point of why do we do this? So we do it out of fear and out of protection, these 3 months of the time. Out of fear of not offending the boss, out of fear of not losing the job, out of fear of not being rated as a bad performer, whatever the other fears that may come up. Or out of protection that we got disappointed several times, so we don't want to be disappointed again. Therefore, we just go with the flow and do the things, even though we really want to fight for something else. And then therefore, we just keep feeling like we're sacrificing, but we don't really know how to do and what to do about it. Now, where are those feelings of fear and feelings of safety coming from? They are coming from our thoughts. And those thoughts could be about ourselves and our abilities, about other people, and about the environment where we work. So let's dive into some of the thoughts about ourselves because I thought that's so fascinating to look at it. And then, of course, you can do that exercise with others and with the environment as well. About our thoughts about ourselves. So one of the main things that people tell me is that if they say no, they are not going to be a good person. They feel like good person equals saying yes and being flexible and being available all the time. I don't know where that definition comes from, but somehow many of us programmed to believe that that's the case. So ask yourself, why are you equating being a good person meaning yes to everything or yes to all the requests and all the things? What happens if you are a good person and you're able to say no? What feelings come up then? And then you can also get curious as to why do you feel that way, even though if you believe that you're really a good person, right? Because if we really truly believe we're a good person in our hearts, then if someone says something that we don't want to be doing, then we can just say no, right? Now, there is an interesting thing is that being a good person for me means being honest. I don't know your definition, but this is my definition. Being a good person means being honest. And in that moment, if I don't want to do something that someone's asking me to do, then of course I honor my being a good person by saying honestly that no, I don't want to do it, or I can't do it, or whatever the answer, but no. Right? But if I'm saying yes anyway, that means I'm faking it, I'm pretending it. I'm faking and pretending, meaning I'm lying to myself and to the other person. Now, for me, that's not a good person who lies to herself, himself, or to other people, right? So that's why I would love for you to check your definition of what that good person is. The next one is I don't want to, or I don't need this time for myself anywhere, or I don't need to prioritize myself anyway because I'm here on mission anyway. This is the explanation that I get a lot. But because sorry, then they will say that if I prioritize myself, that means I'm being selfish. Now, for starter, we know that selfish people don't care about other people. And if you are a humanitarian, that means a priori you are the person who is there because you care about other people. So why are we doubting ourselves of being that person who doesn't care about others? right? And if we really care about other persons and we want to help them long term, then we also need to know how to take care of ourselves, because otherwise it's not sustainable. Now that's where we need to prioritize ourselves as much as we prioritize them, the other people, because our helping them should not cost us, I think. Meaning that the way that we help other people should not be costing our health, our nerves, or our souls, basically. Because we want to help them out of abundance, out of wanting to help, not out of deficit of we don't have anything to give and then we're still trying to give, right? Because that will be noticed by others and also that will not be effective. Because then what will happen is that we will want to have them say yes or thank you or some type of appreciation. And if they don't have it, then we'll feel like I'm giving and I'm giving and I'm not receiving anything. That's where resentment comes in. And then that help will all turn into resentment. And then we will not like our lives, or we will not like them for getting our assistance. So that's why prioritizing yourself might be another way to go. And the third one that I see oftentimes is that not being liked. If we say no, someone will not like us. But why should someone's like depend on our saying no? That means that their like is really conditional, right? If we are the person they want us to be, then they like us. If we are not the person they want us to be, then they don't. Then do we really want to have those people around who give us these conditions and say, well, I can only like you if you have XYZ? I would say no. So think about it. Why do you need their liking? What will you think about yourself if they liked you? What would you believe about yourself if they liked you? And why couldn't you have those beliefs about yourself no matter whether they like you or not? Because in the end of the day, we can't make other people like us. And I think we know it, but somehow we also forget it. And that's okay. We can just bring it back and to say, do I really want to be liked? At the expense, by the way, of giving up my values or giving up my time or giving up my brain energy? Maybe not. Think about it. It's your decision, right? And the last one is we will have problems if we say no to. What kind of problems? Why do you think you cannot solve those problems, even if, let's say, that they occur? And if you are an amazing performer already during the working hours, why should those outside of working hours matter for you? Why those one no matter so much to get the influence over all of your performance? Right? In the end of the day, you're not really performing for the sake of getting like great performance as on the paper. We are probably doing it out of wanting to really help those people, out of wanting to do that impact. Then you are honest with yourself as to what is it that you're wanting and how are you wanting to create that impact. Then why focus on that performance? I know that performance is important for career advancement, but I have also seen so many examples of people who have performed their work so well in the best way possible, and they really always got their promotions, even if maybe on paper someone like the manager said things that in the end no one really believed them. So that's why I think about it. Is it worth sacrificing your values, your impact over that having a problem fear, right? So now I want you to think about that as well, about your about other people, your thinking, and about your environment. What are your thoughts about your people you're working with, your colleagues your boss you're working with, when you are ready to sacrifice, right? So, for instance, maybe you might be thinking, my boss won't understand me. I don't know. How do we know? Did we talk to the boss? right? Or environment is like everyone does it this way. Yes, I understand that, and that might seem very true, and probably it's true. But if we keep all following that everyone does this way and I should just go with that, then we're not able to change the cultures within. We're not able to change the way that we want to work in that environment. So we can always be the first person who does that. Now, in order to do that, this is what we need to do. We need to be the person who does not sacrifice anymore if we don't want to. That's key. So therefore, what to do part is three parts that I want you to work on at least. One is, who do you need to be the person who does not sacrifice? Maybe you can be the person who's courageous, who is standing by the values, who is standing by being clear as to how you want to spend your time, how you want to say no, all of these things, right? So, who do you need to be in order to do those things? What do you need to believe about yourself and about your abilities in order to then say no if necessary? The second is, how do you need to feel? Like I was saying, maybe you need to feel courageous, you need to feel trusting, you need to feel in integrity, you need to feel, you know, how you can stand by your own truth, by your own values. And then the last one is, what specific things do you need to do in order to make that happen, in order not to sacrifice anymore? What resources you need to pull from within, what boundaries you need to set, how do you need to respect those boundaries? What are the things that you need to give up? Maybe giving up the idea of being a good person, or redefining your own way of what is a good person, redefining or your own way of how you are not a selfish person, and still you get to say no so that you can retank and recharge, right? So all of that you can decide for yourself. And I would love for you to start doing that now so that you actually enjoy doing what you do. You also stay true to who you are and make that impact the way you want to without feeling like you're sacrificing, you're depleting your energy, you're resenting, and all of these things, because those are the feelings that will always make you feel like you are not really enjoying and living your life. And I would love for you to enjoy and live your life while also making the impact that you want. So that's why, my dears, if you want to transition from being the person who sacrifices to being the person who does not, then I invite you to coach with me, and I would love to coach you on any of these topics. Until then, have an amazing weekend and talk to you next week.